Greetings, Commanders, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be focusing on a smaller account, 6 months to 1 year. I want to focus on the players that are still developing that tier 7 to tier 9. I think they can really get a lot out of this episode, but also for players that aren't the biggest bosses in their guild, because a lot of what today's account is about is prepping your big players for big hits, setting up a huge assist. So, on today's episode of Pimp My Arc, lt.norty.
So you wanna be a player, but you weren't too smart. You gotta hit Melt up to get a pimp out up.
And before we go any deeper into this episode, I just want to say that this shirt, this is my new plasma shirt. It's a semi-transparent shirt. It looks just like plasma. I named Melt after plasma. I'm so excited. This worked out so good for the episode. Okay, all right. Let's talk about lt.norty. lt.norty is a 49 million power arc on server 1013. I think it's 1013. The home of ZRO and an old friend of the channel, King Kane. Not to mention Straight Shooter, and who else gets a shout out at the beginning of this? Inferno, Grim, and Satanic Mummy. You guys are the best. But of course, we're not here to talk about those guys. We're here to talk about lt.norty. Now, being that he is in somewhat of like the rival guild, right? You'll notice that if you look at the server map, ZRO doesn't have current control of all the map, the capitals, and Centicon. So their main issue, or their main interest, is battling ONT, which is a combination apparently of 1 and TNT. That being said, we have an interesting account today, boys. We have stopped at Airship Max, right? Airship Max is all done. He's still working on infantry. He did finish Walker, but infantry is mostly abandoned. So that means he's an airship account with really no use for infantry. Maybe a little bit of Walker, but let's go to Advanced tab and see what we're working with here. It's just airships, right? But you can use Walker with airship troops, right? Because tier 9 airships have a subclass of Walker. But he's very early on. He's still getting to tier 10, but he has tier 9. So what can you do with a tier 9 airship account on a server where everyone has tier 12? Well, the answer is bait your opponents into sending big marches. How do you do that? Use commanders that trade really well toe-to-toe. Commanders like King, commanders like Grievous, commanders like Gilly. Oh, there's a lot of commanders that are just good toe-to-toe commanders. Lady and Beast. If you send 5 units of T9 per slot into a capital, that forces your opponent to send a one big 1 slot bust march, or twice the size march or bigger. Sometimes they just autofill because they don't want to go through the hassle. But that can bait your opponents into sending big marches and gives your big players, guys like King Kane, a chance to counter march when you set up that assist. So let's talk about his main. Now, of course, the main thing we're going to be talking about today is gear and gems. I kind of talked about that at the intro. Gear and gems, all that glitters. That's the main thing I want to focus on. But I do want to cover his main first. His main is, I think this may be a Pimp My Arc episode first. Of all the commanders in front of you, who was his main? Dun, 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 dun. Grievous?
Wow.
He has a 210,000 leadership Grievous. Double Titan build, creator, Voltar's Pants, and then Devil's Touch. So penetration, airship HP, loses crit. Devil's Touch is good. Penetration's always good. No gripes here, right? More damage, more penetration. That means more healing when he triggers his 80% energy absorption. Now, the only gripe I have with that is... No, that works good with Scorpio. You might be able to get more value out of it with raw Devastation Helmet, but I think the overall use of penetration is going to help as you scale into higher tier as well. So I'm happy with this build, except for the Voltar Pants. For that, I think you strictly need to get either the Fearless Pants or Maguel Pants, maybe Assault Pants. These aren't that bad of pants, and the only problem I have with them is that how often are you going to be going against walkers with Grievous and T9 airships? Not too often. So as a basic build, I think Maguel's better. Now, he is running Voltars, so I'm okay with that because Grievous, for those of you that don't know, I don't know, we haven't really done a Grievous breakdown, have we? I think we did maybe a long time ago. But he has a 20% skill. We don't get too excited about 20% skills. And it says all soldiers increase attack by 60%. This is that basic 60% buff. It's like the equivalent of a Titan level, a level 10 Titan or something, right? Not that great. But his 80% skill, second skill, all soldiers, not just airships, 80% chance to trigger before the actions. After this attack, he recovers HP. This is the Galileo heal, or the Echo heal, or who else? There's one more. There's a new one. God, I can't forget. Who is the new commander that has the damage-based heal like that? The Galileo. Is it Vacuum Cleaner Girl? Someone put it in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so it is a good heal, but it is requiring you to hit really hard, right? Now, of course, the Airship Awakening, right? Airship Awakening, he's getting this leveled up really high, like he's really committed to this Grievous, which I think is fine, because one day he said he's going to be a Vega main. That's fine, you filthy animal. But for now, he's going to be using this march to bait his opponents in, which I think is awesome. I think that's a great angle to take the episode as well. So he's going to get the Airship Awakening. Now, remember, Airship Awakening is the only class-specific skill. The all soldiers and all shoulders works with infantry and walkers, but in Tier 9, you're not going to be really doing that too much. It's just something worth mentioning for the episode. Okay, so Voltar's Pants. He doesn't have a guaranteed hit. He needs to land hit. So that means double Titan builds are good. They hit really hard, but then you're totally dependent on your Scorpio, your primary gem. So there's the first gem. You need Scorpio to hit hard. Now you could make the argument that Wild Roses are better. And there is a case for that because the penetration meta is shifting, but it really happens once you get into the Tier 11, Tier 12 meta. Back with Tier 9, Titans are still the way to go. So for now, gem-wise, we need Scorpio. The Cepheus with the Crit Wither, that just makes you more tanky, right? The 5-piece is, it does increase your damage, but it doesn't guarantee hit, right? Target's defense of this attack will decrease until the activator's next action. They will not be able to cover. It's not a guaranteed hit. So we don't need it as much as we need Gemini. So unfortunately, you have to run Scorpio Gemini on Grievous. The next thing after that, it is nice to have that 5-piece, Cepheus, because it does lower their defense and stop them from healing. But you also have other options. I want to throw this out there because this type of a Grievous build is very much a utility commander. You're not going to be full marching too often with this guy. You're going to set up gear as you need it, either with bonus resistance weakened effect if you see infantry there, or bonus strengthened weakened effect if you see walkers there. But the thing is you don't have to commit to any specific gear. There are some things that you have to do, right? I think the double Titans is an obvious do it. The helmet, though, you can easily swap this out for rabbit ears if you know you're going against walkers. You can easily swap it out for ghost mask if you know you're going against infantry. And these are for small marches, right? 5 units per slot, something like that. As far as the chess piece is concerned, I was thinking about this. The Ghillie build is here. The new Ghillie Badass Guild was announced on Tuesday Newsday a while back, and it's an amazing piece of gear that really makes your commander far more tanky. It has like a similar effect to damage reduction because not only does it lower their chance to crit, their crit damage, but if you get over their chance to crit and their crit damage, it even starts lowering their attack to the point where you can zero them out. Of course, that takes a lot of crit wither, but at the end of the day, it makes you more tanky. Now, a commander like Grievous is going to be hitting hard to heal, so you don't necessarily, you want to hit harder more than you want to be able to take hits. But it's not a bad choice. Now, of course, Shadow is good too if you know you're going against a lot of infantry, which could happen if you're a Grievous main. But of course, stat for stat, Armor of the Tyrant outdoes Creator, right? The base stat for Armor of the Tyrant is 80% for the best roll, but the base stat for Creator is 40-20. Which is 6 points of defense per level. So 4 to defense, 2 to HP, while Armor of the Tyrant can be up to 8 armor per level. So I know that it probably doesn't come out as easy as it is, but basically you can get 8 points of defense per level on your gear for Armor of the Tyrant. For Creator, you can only get 6 points of defense stats per level. With Shura, you get 2 defense, 2 dodge per level, right? And you get a lot of that crit wither. So that adds up to, what, 3 crit wither per level, which is like 7 stats per level, 7 defensive stats per level. So Shura, stat-wise, falls somewhere between Creator and Armor of the Tyrant. So, and each item has their drawbacks, right? Armor of the Tyrant is straight damage reduction for defense, but it can be ignored by Gilly, ignored by Vega, ignored by Leo gems, right? But HP, on the other hand, if you want to stack HP with Shadow or something like that, that could be ignored by Sagittarius, Nekajiro Sniper. Shura, all around, Crit Wither just works against everyone. Except for damage spells, right? It's not going to work against Reinhardt's Thorns. It's not going to work against Elf's Curse. Crit Wither works against physical damage, and so does defense. But HP works against spell damage, like Elf's Curse, So there's a lot of trade-offs here. Either one of them is fine. If you know you're going to be going to a lot of infantry, you may as well just get Shadow just to make sure they don't try to strengthen weaken you. I don't want to go too much further in that. Let's just go back to gems real quick. Scorpio Gemini is a must. You got to land hits in order to get your skill to trigger. That's a given. But after those, if you get a third gem, you might want to consider Virgo. You might want to consider Cepheus. Virgo's great because it lowers their attack, which is nice, more survival, and it forces them to go next turn. That gives you a lot of time to hit those troops in the front row with your energy absorption and heal your troops back up if they've taken some damage, especially in a small skirmish 5v5. What I'm talking about is, when I say 5v5, I hope no one's getting lost on this. Okay, so this is the march I'm talking about. 5 units of tier 9 per slot. It's still a formidable march. That's still a lot of units. What is that? 3,000 leadership worth per slot. It's enough units to make your opponent realize they have to send a legitimate march and perhaps send a much larger march than they want to make sure they don't fail. It's embarrassing as a server boss to lose a march. So they may force them to commit to something larger. And I guess what I'm trying to get across is with Scorpio, with Gemini, and a lot of damage gear with the right build like you have here, you can send that to a capital or a tile and hold that tile, especially like an enriched tile on the weekend. And you can force your opponents to send something big. If you're on Discord, if you're on line chat, and you tell your guild boss, hey, so-and-so's counter-marching my tile, go now, he's max marching infantry or whatever, you can set up a huge one-slot bust for your guild to score big. And that's a good way to fight big boss players without having to be a bullet, without having to be a one-slot bust Vega. There are ways to do it, and I think that's what's great about this Grievous build. It gives you a lot of options to play the game just a little bit differently than I normally talk about on this channel. So there's that. Yeah, there it is. That is Lieutenant Norty's account. Now, of course, I could go much further into all these other commanders, but realistically, it's just a matter of keep buffing your Vega up, keep working on your research. Give it time. This is a 1-year-old account. There's no rush to tier 12. It took me 3 years to get to tier 12. You're in the tier 9 heyday. You don't need to rush to Vega. He's good. He's good at tier 9, tier 10. But you can have a lot of fun with Grievous right now, and hopefully it'll help you score some big replays. So get out there, use this new Grievous build, get that Scorpio and Gemini set up, and give me some great replays for Replay of the Week. And thanks for letting us do this. So shout out to the ZRO Guild. Thanks for supporting this channel, this community. You guys are great. Grim, thanks. Every time I talk about ZRO and the best player in the guild, everyone talks about how great Grim is. He's like the go-to officer that keeps everybody in line. So Grim, another shout out to you. Thanks for being that coordinated officer that keeps this family guild alive. And of course, King Kang, right? The big boss man that does a lot of the heavy lifting around here. So Lieutenant Norty, thanks for letting us do this. That's the end of this episode. If you liked it, leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. And hit the bell icon because we're going to launch another video tomorrow. Yo, we're going to release a commander. Who's it going to be? I'm thinking Luna?